Hello, everybody, and welcome to the club. You'll notice that I'm kicking things off this evening or this morning because guess what? Yoz's Wi-Fi is struggling again. So it's wonderful, isn't it? Modern technology. We've got two people who are actually in Sydney, but the person who's in London, in the UK with you all, I'm afraid is just struggling at the moment. But that is Yoz, I'm afraid. I mean, we've come used to him, haven't we, over the last year or so. Anyway, it's great to have others with us in the world's best cricket club on. I can report another rainy day in Sydney, overcast. I've actually got my jumper on. It's cool again. I know you're not worried about that back in the UK because that's probably even colder. But the weather's been really bizarre. So welcome to Australia. Others, I know you're still locked up. You're still banged up in quarantine. How's it been?
Great to see you. I arrived on. When did I arrive? I can't even think. Thursday, I think. So I've been this 3-day quarantine in Sydney. I'm in Bondi. I know you're in Coogee. As you say, very un-Australian weather, cloudy and cool. As you know, we're allowed to go out on day one to get our PCR test, and that's the only time that I've seen the sun. It was a blazing morning when I walked to Bondi Junction for my PCR test, but I haven't seen the sun since. And of course, that's going to play a part in this series coming up. Everybody's saying there's an El Nino weather phenomenon here, as there was in 2010 and 11. And if you look historically, England have always done rather better when conditions have been cool and damp here. So maybe it'll play into England's hands.
One thing we talked about on our previous podcast on Friday with Yoz was Jack Leach is in the England party. Ben Stokes is back. And so in theory, that means that England can play a frontline spinner. But do you see a situation, say, at the Gabba, where England just say, no, we're just going to go 5 seamers, basically, Stokes as the sort of all-round who hasn't bowled a great deal, and then 4 pace bowlers. So basically 5 seamers plus Joe Root. I mean, would there be a temptation to do that, do you think?
I think if you imagine the conditions to be as per you'd expect at the Gabba, which is quite steamy, maybe humid, with a bit in it in the pitch on the first day, but generally good conditions, and if the forecast is fine, then I think England would want to play a spinner. I think Ben Stokes gives them that opportunity to balance the team. They play 3 seamers, Stokes and Leach as the spinner. If, however, they got to the Gabba on that morning and the forecast was horrendous for 5 days, and you felt you were only going to be playing in a game that was going to, have 2 days, maybe 3 days of cricket because of the weather, and the pitch was looking very green and juicy because of the rainfall that we'd had, I think it's an outside possibility that they might play an all-seam attack, and as you say, going with Root as a spinner. But I think fundamentally that's not what they'd want to do in Australia with a kookaburra ball. We know how quickly that stops moving and goes soft, and the pitches tend to flatten out here in Australia pretty quickly. So generally, in normal conditions, I think Stokes would give them that ability to play the spinner. That's the way they'd want to go. In extreme conditions, they might play an all-seam attack, but only in extreme conditions.
How do you see the series, Others? I mean, it's been the most bizarre build-up to an Ashes series I can ever remember. I'm sure the same for you as well. But when sort of push comes to shove, when we get down to it, do you expect Australia to be a bit too strong for England?
The usual starting point is just a historic one, isn't it? How generally England struggle in Australia. If you look after the Second World War, you go back 60, 70 years, England have won a handful of times here in Australia. You're looking at 54-5, 70-71, a couple of times against the Packer weakened sides at the end of the 70s, 86, 87, 2010, 11. It's a handful of occasions. So if you're smart and you go by history, your starting point is that England don't come here as favourites. That said, I agree with you. It's been an unbelievably tricky build-up for all kinds of reasons. COVID, Australia have hardly played any test cricket since the outbreak of the pandemic. This rain in Brisbane that has just scuppered any chance of either side having a half-decent preparation. Weather forecast suggests that we may get a shortened game in Brisbane, which may make it hard to get a result there. It looks like we won't go to Perth for the last test. So you can see some things coming to England's favour. If rain falls at the Gabba, if there's going to be 2 day-night test matches, possibly with another one at Melbourne at the end, no Perth, where England usually struggle. you can see one or two factors just moving in England's direction, but broadly you start, I think, from the point that Australia generally very strong and hard to beat at home. It doesn't look the greatest Australian team, but still fantastic cricketers in there, a top-class seam attack, two exceptional batsmen in Labuschagne and Smith, and Warner if he finds his form, and therefore, not a bad Australian side either. So I think England have got it all to do for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you've been inside many dressing rooms. How would a change of captain at such a late stage affect a team, or is it does it really matter that much? Or it's two familiar faces. It's not someone coming in from the outside. They know Pat Cummins and they know Steve Smith. In a way, does it make that much difference?
Well, we'll see. I think it's not ideal for Australia, for two reasons. One, the way that it happened with the Payne thing, and people will have their different opinions on that. But I think there would have been general disquiet amongst the playing group in the kind of manner of how Tim Payne was let go, if you like. And secondly, just historically, fast bowlers tend not to captain Test teams. If you look, I mean, how many out-and-out fast bowlers can you think of that have done the job in recent times? Willis did it for England in the early 80s after Brearley came back in for that series in 81 and a brief interlude from Keith Fletcher. Courtney Walsh has done it a bit for West Indies. I mean, lots of all-rounders have done it, fast bowling all-rounders. I'll talk like Pollock and Wasim Akram. Imran Khan, of course, was a fantastic captain of Pakistan. But out-and-out fast bowlers, there aren't too many. And indeed, Australia have not had anybody since Lindwall, and that was for only one game in the mid-50s. So fast bowling is a hard physical grind. I don't see it being an easy job to captain and be one of the main strike bowlers as well. I mean, there's a reason why over 150 years of Test cricket, the fast bowlers generally have not captain teams. So I don't think it's going to be an easy task for Pat Cummins, but he's clearly a man of he's very able cricketer. He's a brilliant fast bowler. He's the number one ranked Test bowler. Everybody says, who's met it, I don't know him well, but everybody says what a decent bloke he is. He's obviously highly respected, so he's got a lot of things in his favour, but I think he's got it all to do, just because fast bowlers don't captain sides generally. I mean, what's his experience of captaincy? Just a handful of games, isn't it? So, yeah, it's not ideal, I don't think, for Australia.
Last couple from me before we open it up to our audience members. Great to have you with us this evening on a Saturday evening. Why aren't you at Christmas parties? Oh, you're not allowed to go. Oh, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, it's great to have you with us. Well, here's a question, Alex. I mean, you were up against Mark Taylor, but Joe Root and Pat Cummins, have two nicer men ever come up against each other in an Ashes series?
Well, that's true, isn't it? I mean, both are, as I said, I don't know Pat Cummins well, only by kind of reputation and just the odd hello here and there. But I mean, if you've read the gushing long profiles that have appeared in the Australian paper in the last 2 weeks and the Sydney Morning Herald this weekend, he's got a lot to live up to. He's being built up as a man
St.
without...
Patrick, I've called him.
St. Patrick, yeah, absolutely. A man without flaw. But that's a difficult cross to bear from time to time. And he's actually played down those expectations a bit, hasn't he? He's dampened down those expectations, which I think is a smart thing to do because, who is perfect? None of us really. But you're right, Pat Cummins and Joe Root, two lovely guys, two top-class players. You're looking at, the elite of the elite, really, in the world game. And let's hope both of them can, have the attitude to go out and play a game of cricket, because I think people in both countries need that lift. It's such a horrendous time at the moment with COVID and this new variant and people locked down. It's a pretty depressing time. And of course, that's really what sport is there to do. It's to take people away from the nonsense of daily life and give them a lift. So let's hope both these teams can do that.
So last question from me before we go to members' question. I can see lots of people with their hands up. We'll try to get in as many as we, as many as we possibly can before 10 o'clock your time. Alice is with us for an hour. We've got to get the quiz in as well. So just following on from that, do you think we're going to have a sort of a friendlier Ashes series, or do you think when it comes to it on that first morning, it'll all kick off again? That old Anglo-Australian rivalry, a sort of default position will kick in.
It's going to be a hard-fought series. There's no question of that. I haven't yet seen an Ashes series that's not been hard-fought. But I do think, I think what you're getting at, if you recall, before the last series, Nathan Lyon did that slightly strange press conference, didn't he, on the eve of the Ashes, where he talked about ending careers and all that kind of thing. And I sense that, I do sense it'll be slightly different because of, I think, both the captains who are running the show, and also cricket in the last few years, from what I've seen, whether it's the consequence of, players playing together in the franchise competitions as they do, the likes of Bairstow and Warner opening the batting together for Sunrisers Hyderabad, you get to know these players in a way probably that you didn't get to know them before. So I suspect it won't go overboard, and I hope it doesn't. I've always, hoped to see hard competitive cricket, but I don't believe there's a place for, preordained sledging or abuse or whatever you want to call it. I've always felt that, you've got red-blooded men out there who are competitive and want to do well, and just occasionally things will boil over, and I don't have a problem with that. Once it's a product of once it's organic and as a product of the action. So if I go back to myself and Alan Donald, that famous occasion, that was a consequence of just some very hard competitive cricket. It wasn't a case of either of us going out preordained intent to abuse each other. So I have no problems with when things boil over from time to time, which they will always do in international sport. And as long as both teams go out with the right and fair attitude to play hard and fair, I think that's fine.
Yeah, great.
I'm here anyway.
Okay, great, Yoz. Wonderful to hear
you
from you.
Now,
listen,
me now, can you?
That's fine. No, we've got you. There are lots of people with their hands up to ask questions. So what I would say this evening, because there are lots of people who want to ask questions, is probably try to limit it to one question, and we'll try and move through as quickly as we possibly can, so we can try and get as many people.
I've got a question. Can someone come and fix my Wi-Fi?
That's the same question you ask every week. For the last
I'm
6
sorry.
months,
I apologise.
Right.
But anyway, I've been listening, and it's been great so far. So please carry on. I'll try and stay in touch.
Right, Simon, producer notes here. I am going to bring in Richard Harris first. Not the Richard Harris. Well, maybe he's the Richard Harris, but here
the Richard Harris. Hi. Can you hear me all right?
I can.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. Hi. It's a real privilege to be able to speak to you, Michael. Thank you very much for this. And a quick one. Graham Thorpe, I remember, said that the hardest bowler that he faced in sort of the 90s, late 90s sort of time was Sean Pollock. And I remember that there was this kind of feeling that Glenn McGrath, slightly unfairly perhaps, he had your number a little bit. Would you say that was he the hardest test bowler that you ever faced? And do you think that was a bit unfair that there was that kind of thing going around at that time?
It wasn't unfair at all. He absolutely had my number. There's no way I can get around that. I think he got me out 19 times in Test cricket, and I didn't do very well against him. I got out a lot to some other bowlers like Walsh and Ambrose, but I felt I kind of got my share of runs against them, that I had times where, I did okay against those bowlers as well. But against Glenn McGrath, I can't think of too many occasions where I came out on top. And I don't know, it's a weird one because you mentioned Sean Pollock there, and really there was not much difference between the two. Sean Pollock and Glenn McGrath were very similar bowlers. They got in tight. They were both lively of pace. They nipped it around a bit off the seam if there was anything in the pitch, and they could bowl a difficult bouncer. And I got loads of runs against Sean Pollock in South Africa, but I didn't against McGrath. Maybe it was the combination, because you had usually Warne at the other end as well once you got past the new ball, and both of them, really would dry up runs if they weren't getting you out. So scoring fluently against them was very difficult. But then what happens is, and this is why 5 test match series against a top-notch attack is the hardest thing, I think, for an opening batsman, or indeed any batsman, is if a bowler starts to get you out, there's no escape. It's not like a 2-test series. You can go and get some runs against another attack and build your confidence back up. You've got to come out against this same bowler time and time and time again. And we used to play Australia, obviously, every 2 years. It's the Ashes. So I played a lot against McGrath. And eventually, it starts to get to you. It starts to weigh on your mind. You worry about, the bowler that you're going to be facing. And that's a bad place to be. But that is the challenge of elite sport or elite cricket. Afraid, he had my number. Bobby Simpson, who used to be the Australia coach and coached Lancashire for a little bit as well, he had a saying, and he said most, unless you're a real true kind of great at the game, he said most people at some point will reach their natural level of incompetence. I think my level of incompetence when I face Glenn McGrath.
I'm just going to interrupt a bit because I forgot to say at the start of this that Pushkar, one of our very consistent, loyal members, has come up with a great fact today, Athers, which is that it was on this day when you made your 185 not out in Johannesburg, the 4th of December. And I've actually got it here. I'm just going to play a minute and a half of it. All right, coming up. If I can, Norts, you got to let me share the screen. You're in out, right.
You're all good.
So here you go. This is just a few little clips of it.
No third man. Angled the bat nicely, perfectly controlled shot, and 4 runs. 99, the England captain, twice he's been out on that score in the past. But dropped him! Can you believe it? Gary Kirsten dropped him.
And as short leg catches go, that was straightforward.
4 runs, that's the 100. He's 9th in Test match cricket. And remember, he's been out 11 times between 80 and 99. Beautifully played, using the pace of the delivery. Oh! No ball called, and that, I think, hit him on the head. That's well controlled, and it's going to be 4 runs. Ryan McMillan to Atherton, well pitched up to him and quite beautifully played. And Atherton has got that one away for 4, and so he goes beyond the highest score ever made on this new Wanderers ground. Are they going to say enough is enough, South Africa? Yes, Hansi Cronje offers the hand. He'll be a very disappointed man, but what an effort by Michael Atherton in particular, and Jack Russell.
Well, that's right. Michael Atherton, he's been on the field for every ball of the match since 2 minutes past 6 on Friday, and he's only missed just under 5 hours of the entire 5-day match.
I mean, an amazing performance, and apparently the 643 minutes, was it? Is that right? Which is the longest ever, according to Pushkar again. It's the longest ever 4th innings in a 4th innings, if you like. Yeah, I guess you knew that, did you?
I was flicking through Twitter this morning. I did see that it was the anniversary of that game. But yeah, I think it's direct anniversary. But I mean, the weird thing is, I look at that now. So long ago, obviously, 1995. It seems like a different era completely. And I look at it now almost like an out-of-body experience. I can't really imagine, playing at the Wanderers against Alan Donnell now, because I'm 53 and very old and decrepit. But I look at it and it just seems like somebody else playing, really. I don't.
You were fresh at the end there. You were amazingly fresh looking, even though you batted for that long. I mean, looking at this sort of, there's a couple of shots of you just sort of when you put that 4 away. just sort of about there. I mean, you're still looking as if you've just come out.
Yeah, I was fine. And I mean, it was a great thrill. It was a fast pitch. It was still a good pitch at the end, actually, which was a good thing for us. But it was a fast pitch. Donald and Pollock bowled very quickly at the start of that innings on the fourth day. But the great, thing, if you bat that length of time, is 10 hours later, they weren't so fresh, and we were in charge. And of course, Jack at the other end was fantastic, just the best person to have with you in a crisis. Really, he was not going to give it away. Fantastic bloke.
Talk us through this trigger movement here.
And
then you drove this one. Like
I never really regard myself as a particularly good technical player. I know I had that reputation, but if I was commentating on myself now, I think I'd have a fair bit to say. But a little bit like Alistair Cook, I'm not putting myself in Alistair Cook's league because he had a better record than me for sure. But
I thought you were actually. I mean, I know this isn't just blow your smoke up your ass kind of show, but I thought you were a fantastic player. Actually, I didn't know how to bowl to you. I couldn't keep you quiet, and you just had this defence which you couldn't see past, and then you put away the bad ball unerringly with actually fantastic timing and placement.
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously a good player, but I think that as my career progressed, I can develop technical weaknesses. I think just because the constant cricket that we played, you're constantly on that treadmill. And in those days, as you'll remember, we played county cricket all the time in between test matches. So the chance to actually reset your game once little gremlins had crept in was very difficult. And I felt towards the second half of my career, I was often getting runs despite some technical flaws. And what I shared, I was about to mention Alistair Cook, what I shared with him really was an ability to get runs despite, some technical shortcomings, quite a tough, stubborn streak, which I think all opening batsmen need. You obviously need a reasonable technique, but I think most of all to succeed at Test cricket at the top of the order, which is a tough place to bat, you just need a bit of toughness and a bit of stubbornness. And, Cook certainly had that over a long period of time. If you play 100 test matches at the top of the order, you have to have that kind of stubbornness, really.
Right, great.
Should we move on with the questions?
Yes,
please do. I remember that just very quickly before we go to Niraj. Niraj is going to ask the next question. Relatively new member of committee. I remember as you walked off with Jack Russell, we were all watching it in the BBC Sports room, and everyone, because I mean, obviously you couldn't hear because we were thousands of miles over. Everyone spontaneously stood up and applauded as you and Jack Russell walked off. It was a very quite a touching moment, actually. Right, Niraj,
hey,
what's your question?
Hi, Mike.
Hello,
Mike. This is Amir. Hi, from Mumbai, and it's 3 a.m. So it's
well done, Niraj. Brilliant effort.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. My question to you is that you retired in 2001, and then I think you went straight to the Sky commentary, and you had the stalwarts like Gower, Willis, Ian Botham, who were the icons and heroes of the English cricket and for the world cricket actually. And how challenging was it or intimidating, when you're talking to them, commentating with them, and they were such attacking players, and you were more like I would say not an attacking batsman. So in a situation, how did you actually, your views, and how's it like? Is it challenging, or the way you saw it?
Well, to be honest, when I finished playing, which was 2001, as you rightly said, I actually moved to Channel 4 for a few years with Yozza, actually. I had great fun for 4 years with Yoz. So we covered English domestic test cricket for Channel 4. So that was a commentary box that had Richie Benno, Mark Nicholas, Yozza, Ian Smith, one or two others. So it was Tony Gregg was there then. A lot of very good broadcasters to learn off, and obviously the master, Richie Benno. And then I moved to Sky in 2005, as you said, with lots of big names in that box as well, like Beefy and David Gower. And I think, well, there's two things. Moving into a commentary box with a new set of faces is a bit like just moving into the dressing room when you played. So when I went into the England dressing room when I was 21, I was given my cap by David Gower, who was a boyhood hero. I was playing with Beefy, who, you know, I'd watched as a 13-year-old in that famous Headingley game of 81. And you are a little bit overawed, but your job really is to get their respect. That's your first job as a player when you walk into a dressing room with all these big beasts, is to get their respect. And the way you do that is by proving yourself as a player. And it's a similar thing in a commentary box, really, because many of us go into a commentary box without a great deal of training. So it's a matter of learning quickly, watching the best, like Richie or whoever it may have been, trying to learn quickly and trying to do the job well and take it seriously. You know, of course, you're getting an opportunity because you played Test cricket and you have a name, but you won't last that long if that's all you're relying on. You know, you have to show that you're prepared to take the job seriously, to do your homework, to try and improve. And you know, you are a broadcaster and a journalist now. So you have to try and become good at that and get their respect that way. So that's what I tried to do. And, you know, I've enjoyed a lot of fun in all the commentary boxes that I've worked with. Channel 4, first of all, Sky for the last, well, more than a decade now. Fortunate that, you know, both those commentary boxes had good people there, good people to learn off and watch, and also good people to work with, because we travel around a lot. As Simon and Yoza will tell you, cricket is I wouldn't say it's an arduous game as a commentator, but it's a time-consuming game. You know, the games last a lot of time, long hours. You go on tours where you might be away for a month, 2 months. So it's important to actually get on with the people that you work with. And generally, cricket is populated by decent people to work with.
How much do you think writing helps your commentary, being a writer? And vice versa?
I enjoy doing both. I think writing helps keep you sharp for the commentary because, as you know, writing is quite time-consuming and hard work. And, you know, you need to stay on top of things. So you need to go to the press conferences or listen to what's being said. So it keeps you sharp. It means that you come to a day's commentary knowing stuff. And of course, if you're a journalist and you have to write stories, you know, you've got to speak to people. And so it keeps you current and keeps you abreast of the situation. And therefore, that's a help as a commentator. And then as you commentate during the day, that helps formulate things in your mind for when you're going to write in the evening. So, you know, I'll probably start writing maybe tea time, an hour after tea, and I'll kind of dip in and out of commentary and try and do the pieces around it, and then probably have an hour at the end of play where I do that. But throughout the day, you've been watching carefully and when you've been commentating and formulating thoughts. So the two kind of blend together. I mean, it can become a bit tricky sometimes if you go to the Caribbean and time difference is against you. But generally, the time difference is okay because most of the time you're going the other way. And if you go to India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, the time difference is in your favor. So I found that the two kind of combine okay, I think. One helps the other.
It's quite revealing about your personality, actually, when you're writing, because you're able to totally shut yourself off and consume yourself with your writing, which is obviously what you were like as a batsman. And when I'm writing, I just get so distracted by everything all the time, which is why I was a crap batsman. Right, let's move on anyway. Let's move on to another question.
Yeah, we're going from India. We're going way west now. We're going to Keith, who's in the United States. So, Keith, what's your question? Over to you.
Hey, good evening. First of all, how's the audio sound? Is it okay?
Yeah, brilliant. Yes, great. And the video.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks. Hey, Athers. This is like echo everybody else said. This is a big thrill. Thank you very much for the time tonight. So when they first start bringing the pictures on over here, it was the summer of 2016. So my first exposure to the game at that level and yourself was the sessions that you had with Mohammed Amir when he came back. And so my question is, what did you feel or what was it like for you when you heard that Mohammed Amir was retiring when he made that statement earlier this year? And if you could maybe follow up and just talk about what might have been with him as a bowler.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, I'm not close enough to the Pakistan setup to really know the ins and outs. I mean, I read obviously Mohammed Amir's statement when he retired. I'm not close enough to kind of know the veracity of all that and what went on. But I'll talk a little bit about, what happened 2010 and post, because it was one of the more interesting stories that I did. Getting to know him, getting to know his lawyers. When he came out of prison, I did a long interview with him for Sky, and we did it at my house. And it's quite an interesting experience because he'd agreed to do it, and there was no payment, and there was nothing that I couldn't ask him. But the only stipulation was that he would do that interview in Urdu, because he was more confident in his own language, understandably, than he was in English, and he wanted to say absolutely, what he wanted to say, and therefore he wanted to do it in Urdu. So it was an interesting interview where I was speaking to him in my living room, and I had a translator next door. So I would ask the question in English, he would reply in Urdu. It was being simultaneously translated into English in my ear, and we did an hour's interview like that, which I think came out okay, but it was quite a challenging interview for me to do. And it was a story I wanted to pursue because I had the sense that, he was a young man who'd gone through an unbelievably difficult period, and there was slightly more to the story than met the eye initially. So I was very happy when he did finally get back into cricket after 4 or 5 years or whatever it was, and he played again. I don't think he ever quite, got back to that way that he bowled in 2010, if I'm honest. But he's a fabulous bowler at his best, whippy and sharp and an ability to swing the ball both ways. So I'm glad that he got back into international cricket and had a few more years left. And obviously sad to see him retire quite recently.
What do you think might have been if you just, based on your knowledge of the game and watching him bowl, what might have been for him?
You mean had he not had that 5 years out of the game?
Yeah, and where might he be in the pantheon of the pace bowlers?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. 4 or 5 years is a long time, isn't it, out of the game when he was at his peak. If you remember how he bowled in that 2010 series against England, he bowled superbly. And then, 5 years out of the game, and how many test matches do you play in a 5-year period? How many wickets could he have taken? Those are all unknowables, really, and hypotheticals, aren't they? But it was certainly a sad thing to see a young cricketer like that be removed from the game.
Great, Keith. Great to hear from you again in the US.
Yeah,
let's go to Omar now.
Omar's in Edinburgh, and he's on mute.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Omar. Can you hear me? How you doing?
Yeah.
Hi, Athers. Thanks for doing this. I feel really happy speaking to you because you're like the childhood hero of mine. So it's amazing to speak to you. I've got a couple of questions. One is, I asked Nasser this last time he was on. What was it like playing under two of the captains in Alex Stewart and Nasser Hussain and having to go back into the fold as it was? Was it easy to go back in the fold because they were like your mates? And could you kind of just quietly get on with things? And secondly, the second question is to do with Pakistan again. You've been to Pakistan twice recently, and you went just before the pandemic happened. So I was just wondering, was it nice to go back? And have you yourself seen a change in Pakistan from when you were there as a player in terms of the country? I know you were there only for a short period, but the documentaries, the one you did with Imran Khan, initially was excellent, and then you went back and it was kind of cut short. So I just wanted to know your experience.
Yeah, thank you. I loved my time in Pakistan. Of course, my last tour with England was Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So that was 2001 when we won that famous game in the dark. And I didn't go back to Pakistan then for a long time. Obviously, cricket wasn't being played there. Pakistan were kind of exiled to UAE. So when I did go back, it was to do the documentary that you mentioned with Imran. And he was brilliant. He wasn't prime minister at this stage. He was still in opposition. And I just rang him and said, got an idea to come and do a documentary. Would you allow us to just come and film you? And he was fantastic. He just said, come, give you the run of the place. We did a bing long sit down with him in Islamabad. He just gave us the keys to his house in Lahore. We flew up to Peshawar with him on a plane when he was on the kind of political trail. We went up to Kashmir in his helicopter, and we were on stage as he was giving a big address to a local crowd. So we had access to him, and hopefully did a nice program, and then went back again last year to do a little thing, the return of cricket to Pakistan. As you say, that got cut short because the pandemic hit. We got, I thought, a show everywhere, but it's of that 4-day. England will go back in 2022 for a full tour, and I hope I'll be there because I enjoy going to Pakistan. First question on playing under Nasser and Ali, I found it a very easy thing to do. I mean, what I captained for a long time, 4 or 5 years. I'd had enough of it. I wanted quite young. I only took over the captaincy at 25, so I still had the thought you need to be. I was not actually let Alec and Nasser run the show. I'd had my time. They certainly didn't need me interfering. But I did say to them both, look, I've done the job for 4 or 5 years. I've got plenty of experience. If you need to ask my advice, if you need to lean on me, please I'll do so. My door's always open. But essentially, I was there to get runs at the top of the order and just stay out the way and support them as captains, which I tried to do.
Great, thanks very much for those questions, Omar. Others just breaking up a bit there. We'll just bear with it for a second, see whether we can sort that out. We've got a couple more questions. First, Andy, and then Annie. How are we looking with others? Is it worth others just dialing off for a second and then reconnecting?
Check my speed, and I think it's back okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, we got you. Yeah, we've got you nice and clearly. Yeah. So Andy with a question next, and then Annie.
Hi guys. Hi Mike. Good to talk to you.
Hello. Hi.
I obviously brought up watching yourself play cricket and Graham Gooch opening the batting, and then onwards Alex Stewart, Andrew Strauss. Obviously, we had a sort of a run of really good openers at the top for England. It's something we've obviously massively struggled with since, apart from Alistair Cook, probably the last one. We've gone through countless different possibilities. What do you think the main reasons for that, apart from perhaps we've not helped ourselves recently in terms of playing a lot of county cricket in the beginning and beginning and end of the English season? But what do you think are the other reasons for it, and how might we improve the situation?
I think you're right. I mean, one of the strengths of English cricket over a long period of time has been the ability of the openers at the top of the order. You can go way back, Sutton, Hobbs, Sutcliffe, Hutton, Sutcliffe, all the way through Edrich, Boycott. Long list of top class openers. England have rarely struggled. Sometimes it's been more of a struggle. I do have some sympathy for opening batsmen in English cricket at the moment. First class cricket is played a little bit early and late season when pitches can be quite damp and difficult. The Duke's ball is a good ball for producing good cricket to watch, but it's a difficult one because it moves around a lot off the seam and in the air. I think the combination of floodlights and drainage as well has had a big impact. And it's something that's not talked about that much, but I think it's had a really big impact. You're now, because of floodlights, you're now often playing in conditions where when I was playing, you'd be off in the dressing room, sat on your backside in the dressing room. Whereas now with floodlights, you're often playing in challenging conditions for bowlers. So I really remember there was a game against India, I think it was 2016, when Wokes got all those wickets at Lords. I think he got 7th and India were whistled out in no time. And I remember on one of those days, it absolutely leathered it down to the point where the Lords was just like a lake. And when I played, and when Yozza played, in those days, you'd have just gone to the pub. You know, you wouldn't have been playing until the next day. But the drainage meant that the water quickly disappeared, and the floodlights meant that you could then play for 2 hours in the evening session. And suddenly there was 2 hours cricket where the ball was just darting around all over the place. And, you know, 20 years ago, you'd have come out the next morning under sunshine and started all over again. So I think it's a combination of factors that doesn't make it easy at the moment for younger opening batsmen. And it may just be a cycle as well, where, you know, we've had a bit of a struggle to produce opening batsmen. But I think there are reasons for it, and have some sympathy for these young batsmen. I've got a young kid at Middlesex myself who's, you know, trying to find his way in the game at the top of the order. And I think if you're a young cricketer at the moment, it is particularly difficult at the moment in English cricket at the top of the order.
Is it also a little bit connected to batsmen not wanting to play a defensive game as well? And that, you know, when you were brought up, I mean, you played with soft hands and you rode the bounce and you weren't trying to drive it on the up and things like that. So you stuck out those difficult periods perhaps better than maybe the younger players do now.
I mean, that's another factor, isn't it? The moving between formats from first-class cricket to 50-over cricket to T20 cricket, and the influence of the short form of the game now, which is becoming more and more dominant. I think that is another factor, but it's only one factor. You know, when you tie it in with the others, it probably all adds up. But I think, again, my sympathies for these players who are having to move between formats. I think if you're an older and an experienced player, like Johnny Bairstow, say, I think it's much easier to move between formats. But if you're a young kid, 19-year-old, just coming into the game, and suddenly you have a month of first-class cricket, then you go into maybe the Blast, and then you're having to play a couple of first-class games on the back of it. That moving between formats is really tough, I think, for young players who are still learning the game.
I actually think also one other tiny thing is I think these Duke's balls are better than they've ever been. You know, having been to the factory and seen the care and sort of precision in making these handmade balls, and they do take forever to polish them and make the seam proud, and it's all double stitched and everything. That is just, it plays into the bowler's hands in nice conditions to bowl. I think these balls are better than the ones I remember playing with, definitely.
Annie, your question. Time for your question, Annie.
Ray, hello, Michael.
Hi, Annie.
Hello, both of you two as well. Apart from your books, obviously, which are your favourite cricket book? What's your favourite cricket book?
Okay, so I don't know if I can choose one, but I'll give you some that I've liked. I mean, anything by Gideon Haigh, I think is fantastic. I do think he is has been and is the standout cricket writer of the last 20 years, really. And anything by him is worth reading. But I particularly like Stroke of Genius recently, the one that he wrote about Trumper, the great photo, Belden photo of Trumper. Thought that was a fantastic book. Duncan Hamilton's Larwood, I thought, was a fantastic biography of a great working class hero fast bowler. They've just reprinted, actually, Mike Marcus's book called War Minus the Shooting, which
is
a
very good book. Yeah.
96
okay,
World.
I'll make a note of that one.
Very political.
Quite political, and they've just reprinted it. An Indian journalist got hold of the rights and has reprinted it.
He's dead, isn't he?
Yeah, he died. American writer. Yozza's book, I won't make him blush, but a lot of hard yakka, excellent. Ray
you told me that was all lies. You said it was all fiction.
You add a bit of VAT to all your stories, Yoz, as you know.
I'm hoping some of it was fiction, Simon, actually.
I can't remember it so long ago. Anyway, carry on.
VAT under which government?
Glasgow. God, there's so many books.
Okay, Christian Ryan. Do you like Christian Ryan?
Yeah, Golden Boy, fantastic on Kim Hughes. Really, I read that last year again. Fantastic. I think cricket is very lucky, actually, with
I do too, yeah.
a canon of work that has been produced by some fantastic writers down the years. Yeah,
including you, of course.
Well, I haven't. I don't think I've written a book that has. I mean, the autobiography was all right. I don't think I've written a book particularly that has is in that league. I like to think, that the stuff I do for the paper is okay.
Well, it is.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Annie. Right, I think we've got time for a couple more questions, and then we're going to go to the quiz, and then we're going to let others have his breakfast. So, Richard, question from you, Richard Shelley.
Yeah, evening, Simon. Morning, Michael. Pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for your time. I want to refer back to your England captaincy and a couple of decisions. What was the hardest decision you had to make when you had to, drop somebody, and who was it? And if you could change your mind on one decision, what would it be?
Dropping players or leaving players out is the hardest thing, or I found the hardest thing in those days. It's very different now. Well, we don't have a chairman of selectors now with Ed Smith's removal, but when Ed was there, he would be the one who would make the calls. And generally that has been the case in the last few years. The chairman of selectors, whether it's Jeff Miller, David Graveney, Ed Smith, whoever, they would make the calls to players. When I was captain, it was the captain's job on a Sunday morning or a Saturday night to ring the player and tell them. And that's a hard thing to do. And I didn't find it particularly easy. You try and make these decisions in good faith, but players, it's their livelihoods, and particularly in those days when nobody was contracted by England, you're just paid on a pay as you play basis. You realise you are making decisions that affect people's livelihoods significantly. So I didn't find that an easy thing to do. In terms of decisions. I remember when we left Gus Fraser out of the 95 Ashes tour, I desperately tried to ring him that evening, couldn't get hold of him. And he found out, just on television or on the radio the next morning. And that's never an ideal situation. I think you always want to try and tell players face to face, even if it's not a nice message you're giving them. I think it's much better being done face to face than them hearing over the radio. And I certainly regretted not being able to tell him. I quite like to have given Graham Hick a couple of extra runs in Sydney as well.
I remember, I was there in 94-5, and I remember going away from the commentary box, just sitting with some friends on the hill. And he just declared on Hick on 97. It's like, what? Oh my goodness me! I've been fascinated to know what's going on in the dressing room, and I think it was quite interesting in the dressing room, wasn't it? There was a bit of,
interesting. Yeah, yeah, no,
yeah. But actually, I thought you made the right decision. You didn't get on with it. England wanted to declare, and you wanted to get some quick runs to get Australia in, and he
remember that?
Blocked him over.
Do you remember that time England didn't declare on Ian Bell against Sri Lanka in Cardiff? And it took about half an hour to get his 100 the next day, and it wasted a whole load of time. In the end, luckily, England bowled Sri Lanka out for about 80.
About 40, didn't they?
Yeah, so it didn't matter, but it was another occasion when you just thought statistics are taking over, aren't they?
A minute ago, I said you try and make decisions in good faith, and you don't always get them right. As a captain, you'll make hundreds of decisions every day. And as I said, you try and make them in good faith for the right reasons, but you get some wrong. And I certainly got plenty wrong, and I would certainly say that was one of them.
Right, final question this evening or this morning from Pushkar. Go ahead, Pushkar.
Hi, first of all, hi, thank you. It's a great privilege talking to you, Mike.
Hi there.
So my question is that I read that in your young days at Tottenham, you played against Roy Gilchrist, right? I saw a couple of videos of Roy Gilchrist, and he literally soft-trained many batters. So how was your experience playing against Roy Gilchrist? And one more question, that you had one interaction with the Chennai guy Srinivasan when he was playing for, I think, for Woodhouse. So how did it reshape your batting as such? So these are my couple of questions.
Well, you're taking me back a long time because, you're right, I played for a little village club called Woodhouse, which is in the north of Manchester, between Manchester and Oldham, and we played. And for a couple of years, I'm talking about 1973-74, when I was about 5 or 6. Farouk came and was our professional. He didn't keep wicket. He batted and bowled some leg spin. And for a couple of years, he brought over, or helped to bring over, the gentleman that you mentioned. He was called T.E. Srinivasan from Chennai, as you rightly said. And I think he played, did he play 1 test or 2 tests? Not many, but a couple in Australia. And he was this very flamboyant, swashbuckling opening batsman who gave it a right thump at the top of the order. And I was very young. I was only 6, maybe 7. So I've only got vague memories, really, of watching him bat. But he was a very exciting and dashing stroke maker. And the one thing showed me how to put a ball in a sock and tie it from the line and kind of hit practice in the garden. So that was one of his little inventions that I used. And then you're right, I played against Roy Gilchrist. He was playing for Thornham, but he must have been nearly 50 at this stage. So I'm talking again, mid-1970s. I don't know when Roy Gilchrist was born, but he must have been nearly 50. So he was an old man by this stage. But, you know, when you played in the Lancashire and Cheshire League or the Lancashire League, the leagues up there always had quite big name overseas professionals back in the day. And Roy was seeing out the last stages of his career at a little club called Thornham. And I played against him as a 14-year-old. But it's a long time ago.
Roy Gilchrist was born in 1934. So, yeah, in 1974, he'd have been
34. I was 14. No, I was 14. So that was 1982. So what would he have been in 1982?
48?
49. Yeah, 48.
Yeah.
He was quite short. Height-wise, he was quite short and wiry. And, you know, as I say, he was 48, so he was not bowling as he once did. But when you're 14, you don't quite know these things.
No, it must have been a fantastic, fantastic opportunity actually to play against a top-class cricketer. Listen,
Pushkar, thanks for staying up, Pushkar. Brilliant effort by you. That must be 4 a.m. now. Listen, I've got one more question on the chat box here. Actually, it was on the WhatsApp group, and I don't know if Milesh is here, but he just says quickly, club v country debate, media reports about Glazer family entering the cricket space, etc., etc., ICC being called an event organizer, no media talking about Bangladesh or Sri Lanka tests currently going on. How long do you think before cricket goes the football route? And I think he means by that, domestic cricket sort of taking over from international cricket, really.
I mean, it's a trend, isn't it? It was the moment the Indian Premier League came along in 2008. I saw it immediately, actually. I can remember being in New Zealand when that first auction happened. And I was with some English written journalists, and quite a few of them thought that it wouldn't catch on. And I just thought straight away that it was going to upend the game and that there were going to be 2 trends that would happen on the back of it. One, that domestic cricket, club cricket, franchise cricket, whatever you want to call it, would challenge international cricket, which was then the dominant form of the game. And I thought T20 cricket would challenge Test cricket as the dominant form of the game, because once market forces come in, it's very difficult to hold those market forces back. And everything we've seen, I mean, you know, obviously Test cricket is still going and still strong, and the Ashes hopefully will be a great series. But everything since 2008 has been this gradual development of those 2 themes, really. And, you know, in England last year, the 100 was English cricket's attempt to catch up with that. And I just think those trends will accelerate. I'm not that optimistic about Test cricket. I hope I'm wrong. I think if cricket loses it, it will lose something very precious. But market forces are very difficult to hold back unless, you know, the administrators in charge of the game regulate the game to protect certain parts of the game that need protecting. But if it's only left to market forces, then that's the way cricket will go.
Well, just quickly, I mean, you got your son. You mentioned Josh. Does he desperate to play Test cricket? Does he want to play T20? I mean, what's his view?
I think he, talking about just him, he'd have to answer for himself, but I think he is somebody, a young player who wants to play across formats. And certainly if I was playing now, if I was 19 and in his shoes, I'd want to play all formats of the game. I would find it unsatisfactory only to play T20 because, you know, if you bat number 5 in a T20 game, how many balls are you actually going to hit? And the joy of playing the game is actually spending some time in the middle. But equally, I'd want to play T20 because, you know, there's lots of opportunities in the game. And I enjoy watching it. It's good fun. But I like the balance. I like the balance of the game of long form and short form. I'd want to play both. I think he does. I think most young players who are any good want to prove themselves across formats at the moment. It's not easy, and made that point earlier. It's not easy, you know, moving between formats as a young player when you're learning the game. But I think there's still most good young players want to play across formats.
Right, should we do the quiz, Simon?
Yeah, we should. The joy of batting is batting. Who wants to bat for 10 balls? You want to bat for 2 days. That's what you want to do.
Well, we don't want to watch you bat for 10 days, Simon. That's the thing. I mean, also, I would just say one other thing about that. I think the difference between the two formats, in a way, is that Test cricket is quite a selfish game. I mean, I don't mean that rudely, but a batsman concentrates on batting as long as he can, and biding his time and all that. I think T20 is a team game. So in a way, although I'm not saying Test cricket is not a team game, but the team is more of the emphasis in T20, because if you do only face 7 balls at number 6, it doesn't matter, because the idea is you're doing your best for the team, and it's more of a kind of collective thing rather than a personal thing.
Yeah.
That's my.
You're probably right. It just shows how selfish I am. I want to bat for 2 days. Right, let's do the quiz then.
Yeah, let's do the quiz. Thank you very much for all the questions. Brilliant, thoughtful stuff and great answers and so on. Really interesting, good thought-provoking material. It's like reading a whole series of articles from Athers, listening to him talk about that. Right, so this quiz is called "How Well Do You Know Yourself?" It starts with some music. We've done this with every one of our guests, and we've had a series of sort of installments, episodes, if you like. This is the latest leaderboard, which you'd be surprised to see there. Liam Livingston on top. He was actually very good at his knowing about himself.
Can I just interject a second?
Yes.
Paul Nixon probably should be on there, but having watched it back, I've got no idea what he scored, to tell the truth.
Neither have I. It was a disaster. So, yeah, he probably should be on there, but we just never managed to get that together. So this is the latest leaderboard, the kind of autumn/winter competition. NASA was okay. So, in a way, you haven't got that much to beat. You got 6 to beat, really, with NASA at 6, okay? And if you get the answer right, you get... He's got it! You get that. And if you get it wrong, you get this. Right?
Okay.
10 questions, and then you can go and have your breakfast. Simon, do you want to start?
Yeah, you just need to take the leaderboard off the screen, Yoz. Otherwise, I can't see the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Yoz. Yeah, and just to say, there's only one person who's got 10 out of 10, and the lowest score, and we all say this to everybody, the lowest score you got to beat is 4 from Alistair Cook, who was abysmal.
He was pissed.
He was. So there's a mixture of sort of reasonably easy questions and some quite difficult ones. And this is one Yoz wrote yesterday. Strikes me as being quite a difficult one, but we'll see how we go. Question number 1: how many? Everyone remembers their first class innings, but do you? How many did you score on your first class debut for Cambridge University against Essex? And we'll give you within about 3 or 4.
83. 83.
83.
Can you hear me?
He's got it! We'll give him that. We'll give him that. It's a bit conceited, but we'll give him it.
What did I get?
73.
Oh, so okay.
So
it was 73 not out of 135 all out. So you must have played a few shots there.
20 for 7. We were 20 for 7 at one point in the first innings.
There's a lot of low scores, yeah. Right, we'll give you that anyway. It was a decent guess. Fine. 1 out of 1. Okay, question 2. How many England opening partners in Test cricket did you have?
I think we'd have to give him within 2. We're going to have to give him within 2 of that as well, aren't we, Yoz?
I thought you might know this.
12.
He's got it! It was actually 13, but yeah, that's all right. One of them, John Crawley, only played 1 game, so we'll let you off as an opener.
You a lot.
Yeah.
13 is the answer anyway. We'll give you that. 2 out of 2.
Right. Question number 3. Who dismissed you in your final innings in Test and ODI cricket? So we need the name of 2 different bowlers. The last bowler to dismiss you in Test cricket and the last bowler to dismiss you in one-day cricket.
Glenn McGrath, Test cricket. Murray, ODI.
He's got it! Very good. Maybe we were too generous.
Bang on. Well, we can get tougher if we need to. Glenn McGrath, Oval, August 2001, and Matthias Muralitharan at Lords in August 1998. The last 2 bowlers to dismiss you in international cricket. So
Glenn McGrath was a safe guess for Test cricket, wasn't it? Right, question 4. Very good. 3 out of 3. Question 4. Where did you score your last Test 100?
Karachi.
He's got it!
Yeah.
4 out of 4.
Yeah, the famous game in the gloom, Karachi, December 2000. Question number 5. On which English Test ground did you average the most?
Trent Bridge.
He's got it!
Yep, 60.16 from 11 Test matches. Old Trafford, not bad, but Trent Bridge, the best.
That's an unusual one, isn't it? I mean, that's quite surprising, really. I mean, because you wouldn't necessarily think that as very flat.
Yeah, back in the day.
Wouldn't be now, would it? I wouldn't have thought I'd be the one that people would pick now. Okay, 5 out of 5. Question 6, who scored more first-class runs, you or Nasser?
It's 50-50. NASA.
People always make the mistake.
I thought he might have got a few more. He played.
No, actually, it's amazing how close your careers were. Almost exactly the same number of first-class matches, and you scored 21,929, and Nasser scored 20,698. So about 1,300 less. Nasser, quite a lot less actually.
People always make the mistake of being too modest in this quiz, which is a little tip for later as well.
Well, he wasn't modest about his first-class debut, though. He went 10 runs more.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's the first one you got wrong. 5 out of 6.
Yeah. 5 out of 6. Okay. Question number 7. You made 1,791 runs in one-day international cricket. How many sixes did you hit in one-dayers?
1.
He's got it!
Listen, when you only hit 1, you damn well remember them.
Go on, what was it then?
Ian Bishop at Lords.
Top edge over the keeper's head.
No, pulled him into the grandstand. And I've not let him forget it.
Very good.
6 out of 7. Now I think we have to get this one. Has to be spot on, number 8. Okay, Yoz, don't you think?
Right.
Do you think?
How many first-class wickets did you take?
Oh my God. 124.
Have another go.
It's like 120, something like that. I mean, I don't really know. 120 something. What was it?
108.
Oh, 108. I thought it was 120. I've added VAT.
You've done a Yozza.
Done a Yozza. I did a bit of VAT.
608.
So that's 6 out of 8. Question number 9. We've
108 wickets.
We've sort of been in this territory a little bit already in this this session, but Glenn McGrath dismissed you 19 times in Test cricket. 4 other bowlers dismissed you 10 times or more. Who were they?
You can have a quarter of a point for each one.
Ambrose, Walsh, Warne. One more. Donald.
He's got it! Is the right answer, yep. Shane Warne 10 times of those. And then, Ambrose, Walsh, Donald, and Warne. Okay, so that's 7 out of 9.
Good collection of bowlers, isn't it? 10. Good collection of bowlers, that is. God, you do look at that lineup and think, shit, there was some good people around that time. Okay, quite last question. I know of your love of social media. So the question is, who has more Twitter followers, you or NASA?
I think I do, just unless he's caught up very quickly in the last month or so.
He's got it!
You're right. And it is quite close. You're 234,000. He's 222,000. So well done. You have got 8 out of 10.
I'll settle for that.
Excellent. Very good knowledge, actually. Because I wouldn't have thought you do read about yourself very much. But yeah, very good. No, we're up in the middle. You've beaten NASA anyway. That's the main thing.
Cool. Well, that was good fun. Nice to see.
We're done. Thank you. Just to say, this yeah, so. Time for your breakfast. It looks a bit windy outside today. I don't think you're going to be doing much.
Well, I can't do anything. Sitting in my room. I can't go out obviously until later.
Okay.
Can I just get a quick soundbite from Mr. Mike Atherton, if I may, before he goes? I don't know if we've covered it, but we'll ask it. Ash's prediction.
Ash's prediction. Australia 3-1.
Yeah.
That's exactly the predictions we gave the other day, wasn't it? I was on our podcast. Yeah, that feels that's what it feels like at the moment, something like that.
Are you going to be doing any broadcasting? I know obviously Sky haven't got it, BT have it. Are you doing any radio or anything while you're out there?
A little bit of radio down here for SEN, I think.
Okay.
So
keep your hand in.
Yeah, as I said, it's nice to do a bit of both, bit of broadcasting and writing. They combine well. So yeah.
Great. All right. Well, hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for your time tonight or today. And it's all in a great cause. So any new members today, it's all for the Cricketers Trust, the Professional Cricketers Trust, which is desperate for any funds we can get. So it's all to a good cause. So many thanks again, Athers, and enjoy your trip. Hope you don't get too much sledging.
Thanks for everybody tuning in and the questions. See you all later.
Cheers.
Great. Thanks very much, Athers.
Cheers, Athers.